What if everything you've ever been told about enlightenment was wrong? Not just slightly off, not just a little misunderstood, completely, utterly backwards. You weren't misled out of malice, just tradition, passed down stories, half-truths dressed up as wisdom, and you believe them. Why wouldn't you? The books, the teachers, the mantras and methods, they all promised the same thing, that enlightenment was waiting for you, somewhere out there, at the end of a long and winding path, that if you just meditated enough, read the right text, followed the right rituals, surrendered your ego in the exact right way, then one day, maybe you'd finally reach it. And so, like millions before you, you started the chase. Maybe you're still on it, waiting for the click. That one perfect moment where the clouds part and the truth rains down like golden light and everything finally makes sense. You wait for the day it all lines up, your thoughts, your identity, your purpose. The moment yourself dissolves and all that remains is bliss. But here's the question no one dares to ask. What if that moment never comes? What if the reason you haven't found enlightenment is because you're looking for it? See, this is the trick. The mind is addicted to seeking. It thrives on forward motion, on grasping at solutions, answers, meaning. It believes everything must be acquired, earned, figured out. It turns even spirituality into a scavenger hunt. But enlightenment is not something you reach. It's not a destination waiting for you at the end of some grand staircase. It is not a reward for good behavior. It is not something new that you discover. It is what's left when there's nothing left to find. It's what remains when you stop searching, stop striving, stop needing reality to be anything other than what it is right now. And that's why no amount of meditation or mantras or fasting or silent retreats will ever give you enlightenment, because those things all begin with the same false premise, that you are not already what you're looking for. The very act of seeking creates distance. Every time you say, "I want to be enlightened," you affirm the belief that you are not, that it's out there, somewhere, ahead, later, but it's not. It never was. The truth, the one that no book, teacher, or tradition can fully hand to you, is this. You were never separate from it in the first place. Enlightenment is not some cosmic event. It's not a bolt of lightning from the divine. It's not fire in your chest or light pouring from your forehead. It is far more intimate than that, more ordinary. So ordinary, in fact, that the mind dismisses it instantly. Have you ever been fully present in a moment, just for a second? Completely immersed in a sunset, a song, a breath? No commentary, no inner monologue, no judgment, just being? That was it, right there. But the moment your mind kicked back in, the moment you thought was that it was already gone. Not because it left, but because your thoughts took over again. The illusion returned. See, the mind doesn't want it to be this simple. That's the ego's greatest fear. It wants enlightenment to be complicated, elusive, profound. Something you earn. Because if it's already here, right now, if it's something so radically simple that it needs no effort, no journey, no achievement, then the ego loses its purpose. It loses control. And that's terrifying. That's why most people will never accept this. They're too invested in the search. They've built their identity around the pursuit, seeker, student, spiritual warrior. They've spent years following paths, collecting teachings, sitting in silence, chanting ancient names. Letting go of that would feel like losing everything. But here's the twist. Letting go is the doorway, not a metaphorical one, a literal one. You don't arrive at enlightenment. You strip away everything that made you think it was somewhere else. Every belief, every concept, every label, every story about who you are, who you're becoming, what you must fix, achieve, overcome. Gone. And what's left when all of that falls away? Stillness, awareness, presence. Not the idea of presence, but the actual, lived experience of it. The kind that has no name. The kind that can't be held, chased, or possessed. And that's why it's so hard to talk about. The moment you try to describe it, you're not in it. You've already moved into the mind, into interpretation, into narrative. Enlightenment becomes just another word, just another concept in your mental library. But the real thing can't be spoken. It can't be grasped. It can't be reduced to a sentence or even a book. It's like trying to explain the taste of water to someone who's never taken a sip. You can talk around it all day, but they'll never know it until they drink. And once you've tasted it, really tasted it, you realize it was never not there. You were just too busy thinking to notice. This is the paradox. Enlightenment is not an addition to your experience. It's the subtraction of illusion. The illusion that you're not already whole. The illusion that you need fixing. The illusion that you are your thoughts, your identity, your story. The illusion that something is missing. And when all of that drops, when the mental chatter fades, even for a moment, what's left is so simple, so quiet, so undramatic that most people miss it entirely. And the mind, oh, the mind will hate this. It will fight you, argue, tell you you're being naive, that real truth must be more complex, more mystical, more special. But that's just the mind protecting itself. It knows that if you stop seeking, if you stop needing it to figure things out, it becomes irrelevant. It loses control. The ego thrives on the chase. It needs you to keep searching, because if you find what you're looking for, it dies. That's why it whispers, not yet. You're not ready. Just one more book, one more practice, one more year. Then you'll get there. But you never do, because there doesn't exist. That's the real trap. The entire spiritual journey, for most people, is just another form of running. A prettier form, sure, wrapped in robes and incense. But it's still running. Running from this moment. Running from simplicity. Running from the terrifying, beautiful truth that there's nowhere to get to. The great masters, those who actually saw, never gave you steps. They never handed you blueprints. They gave you silence. They gave you presence. They gave you riddles and contradictions and paradoxes because they knew that truth can't be taught. It can only be realized. You've heard it 100 times. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Why? Because nothing changes except everything. Your actions remain, but the seeker vanishes. The tension, the craving, the hunger for something more, that dissolves. What's left is total intimacy with life. Not some cosmic explosion, not an out-of-body experience. Just this, as it is, with nothing added. And it's right here, always has been, closer than breath, closer than thought. But the more you chase it, the further it seems. Because every step toward it is a step away. That's the punchline the mind can't handle. The final illusion. That you're already home. You've just been pacing the hallway, searching for a door that was never locked. In fact, it was never even closed. So here's the invitation. Stop. Stop running. Stop searching. Stop trying to make the moment into something more than what it is. There is no next level. No secret mantra. No final step. This is it. And the moment you truly let go, not as a technique, but as a surrender, the truth reveals itself. Not as some new state, but as the absence of all false ones. You don't find enlightenment. you stop not seeing it. And when that happens, it won't feel like discovering something new. It will feel like coming home to what you never really left. So, are you ready to stop? Or will you keep chasing the ghost of something you already are? What if the thing you've been chasing, the truth, the awakening, the peace, wasn't hiding or running away at all? What if it was still, silent, always here, patiently waiting for you to stop searching? And if you haven't realized this yet, that's okay. The illusion is strong. It wraps itself around everything: thoughts, identity, effort, even spiritual practice. But once you begin to see through it, everything starts to shift. Not in some dramatic, world-shattering way, but in the quiet, grounded recognition that what you've been looking for was never missing. It was only overlooked. One of the most seductive traps on the spiritual path is the belief that meditation is a tool, a means to an end. That if we sit long enough, follow the right instructions, breathe in just the right way, then maybe, eventually, we'll become enlightened. This idea is everywhere. It's comforting because it gives the mind something to do, a goal to reach. But it's a trap, a beautiful, convincing trap. The truth is, meditation isn't a path that leads somewhere. It's not a vehicle to take you to some distant shore of awakening. Meditation is the shore. It's the ocean. It's the entire landscape you've been trying to reach, and the act of trying is exactly what keeps you from realizing that you're already there. We're so conditioned to strive, to effort our way into success, even spiritual success. So, when most people meditate, they close their eyes and immediately start battling. They fight their thoughts, wrestle with distractions, judge every moment their mind wanders. They think, if I can just make it quiet in here, I'll be free. But that's not meditation. That's suppression. That's control. And control is just the ego, dressed up in spiritual clothes, pretending to be holy. The mind wants silence, but only on its terms. It wants stillness, but only by its own command. And so it fights. It tries to conquer itself. But real silence isn't something you create. It's something you discover, something that's already here, always here, beneath the noise. When you stop trying to force the mind into quiet, you begin to notice the quiet that's been there all along. When you stop pushing, stop resisting, the struggle dissolves on its own. Meditation isn't about effort. It's about surrender. It's not about doing anything. In fact, it's about stopping the one who keeps doing. Imagine the ocean. Waves rise and fall, crash and dissolve. But the ocean itself doesn't resist. It doesn't try to make the waves stop. It allows. It embraces. Beneath the surface, it remains still. Your thoughts are no different. They come, they go. Some are stormy. Some are soft. The problem is never the waves. The problem is believing they shouldn't be there. When you let go of that belief, when you stop fighting the mind, something remarkable happens. You realize the stillness you were seeking was never far. It was never gone. It was just buried beneath all the effort to find it. The moment you let go of control, real meditation begins. Not because you finally achieved something, but because you've stopped trying to achieve. This is what the great Zen teacher, Bodhidharma, knew. He sat facing a wall for 9 years, not to gain enlightenment, not to master some technique, just to sit, just to be. No striving, no goal, just presence. The modern mind hates that answer. It wants to do something. It wants techniques, steps, systems. It wants to improve. But the very idea that you need to improve is the root of the illusion. When meditation becomes another thing to achieve, you've already missed it. You've turned stillness into a project, peace into a future. But peace isn't in the future. It's now. It's always now. All it takes is one breath, just one, not controlled, not deepened, not manipulated. Just notice. And in that noticing, something shifts. The endless search pauses. And for a moment, there's just this. No lack, no longing, just being. People chase meditation because they believe they're not enough. They think they need more discipline, more practice, more time. But what if none of that was true? What if the only thing between you and awakening was the belief that you aren't already awake? The mind resists this. It doesn't want to let go of the search. It clings to the struggle because that's all it's ever known. But when you see that even the seeker is part of the illusion, meditation stops being something you do. It becomes who you are. It becomes life itself. The breath, the silence, the space between thoughts, all of it is meditation. Not an activity, but a recognition, a remembering of what's always been true. And yet, even this realization leads to something deeper, something more radical, the crumbling of the self. Because if there's no one meditating, then who is there to become enlightened? Who suffers? Who seeks? This is the final illusion, the belief in a separate me, a self that is somehow apart from the world, steering the ship, writing the story. But who are you really? Not your name, not your memories, not your preferences or fears. Those are just roles, masks, thoughts pretending to be identity. Strip them away, and what remains? The mind will scramble to answer. I'm this body, but the body changes. Cells die, regenerate. You are not the same person you were even a year ago. I'm my thoughts, it says. But thoughts flicker, contradict, vanish. If the self were real, truly real, it would be constant, unchanging. But everything you call me shifts. So where is this I? The great masters of old would pose a challenge. Show me yourself. And no one could do it. Because the more you search for a solid identity, the more it slips through your fingers. You realize there's nothing there to hold. Only awareness. Only presence. The space in which everything comes and goes. Thoughts arise. Emotions pass. Sensations appear. But none of them are you. You are the one who sees them. The one who knows. And yet even that is not quite right, because even the witness is just another idea if clung to too tightly. Go far enough, and even the witness dissolves. And here's the paradox that ends the search. If the self is not real, then who suffers? Who awakens? Who needs liberation? Suffering only exists because we believe there is a me who can be hurt, abandoned, or broken. But if the self is a story, a mirage, then what is there to protect? The moment you see this clearly, suffering loses its grip. Not because pain disappears, but because the one who suffers is seen to be an illusion. Life continues, but the struggle fades. There's nothing left to fix because there's no fixer. Nothing left to chase because there's no chaser. Only life, flowing effortlessly, just as it always has. And here's the twist that most people miss. After all of this, after the illusion of the self crumbles, after the search ends, nothing changes. And yet, everything does. You still live your life. You still get up in the morning. You still make coffee, answer emails, take walks, brush your teeth. But now, there's no resistance, no inner conflict, no commentary dragging behind every experience. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The form of life doesn't shift, but the way you see it, the way you are in it, is transformed. The greatest myth of awakening is that it turns life into something else, that you'll float above pain, untouched by emotion, glowing with peace. But the truth is subtler and far more profound. Life remains exactly what it is, but the lens through which you see it becomes clear. There's no more filtering through judgment, no more constant comparison or fear. You're no longer drinking tea while planning your future or regretting your past. You're just drinking tea. You're not walking while analyzing your worth. You're just walking. Thought may still arise, but it doesn't hook you. Emotion may still move, but it doesn't drown you. Everything happens, and you remain open, present, free. That's the quiet miracle. Not escaping life, but finally meeting it, fully, honestly, without resistance. And in that openness, you realize you were never separate. Not from the silence, not from the now, not from the world. You were the sky, believing it was a cloud. You were the ocean, thinking it was a wave. You were home, trying to find the way back. And now you see, there was never a path. There was never a distance. There was only ever this. There was a time when every moment felt like a stepping stone, a necessary sacrifice for something greater that always seemed just beyond reach. You were never truly here, not fully. Life passed in a blur of purpose, plans, and pressure. The mind insisted on forward motion, always seeking, always chasing. But when awakening arrives, not as a concept, not as something learned, but as a quiet, radical shift, it reveals a truth so simple, so obvious, it almost feels like a joke. There is only this. Just this moment. Nothing more. No more striving. No more resistance. The seeking falls away, and what's left isn't some otherworldly state. It's reality, raw and unfiltered. Drinking tea becomes just drinking tea, not a spiritual act, not a metaphor, just the pure experience of warmth, taste, movement. Walking is simply walking. The mind still chatters, still produces its endless stream of thoughts, but they lose their grip. They rise and fall like clouds drifting across a vast, open sky. The sky, the space in which everything happens, remains untouched, undisturbed. That's the shift. Not the end of thinking, but the end of identification. You no longer claim. No longer believe every thought. No longer hold on to the mind's dramatic monologue. There's no longer a self scrambling to control, to perfect, to get somewhere else. People often misunderstand this. They imagine enlightenment as an escape, as a way out of pain, out of emotion, out of life. But it's not that. Life continues. People still come and go. Challenges still arise. Pain still finds you. The world doesn't soften because you've awakened. It stays just as wild, unpredictable, and sometimes cruel. The difference is that it no longer leaves a scar. Experience moves through you, but doesn't stick. There's no longer a you to take it personally. The waves of life still rise and crash, but the ocean, the essence of being, remains calm beneath it all. Reality no longer needs your resistance. Whatever appears, appears. Whatever fades, fades. You're not fighting it anymore. You're not forcing it to be different. You're no longer living in conflict with what is. And that doesn't make life dull, it makes it luminous. When the noise of the mind fades into the background, the world lights up. Without the constant filter of thought, everything becomes clear, vivid, present. Even the mundane becomes magical. A falling leaf, the sound of rain, the rhythm of your own breath, these aren't just background noise. They are life itself, unfolding in its most honest form. What was once overlooked is now seen. What was once ordinary becomes extraordinary. Not because it changed, but because the veil has lifted. The brilliance was always there, you just didn't notice. And if you were to observe someone who has realized this, you might not notice anything unusual about them. They still go to work, still wash dishes, still feel sadness and joy, but their relationship to all of it has changed. Emotions arise and pass like waves on the sea. Anger comes, but doesn't linger. Sadness flows in, then flows out. Joy is no longer something to grasp or preserve. It's allowed to be fleeting, and in that, it becomes fuller. This is freedom, not the kind promised by fantasy or spiritual myths, but a quieter, deeper liberation. The freedom of no longer needing life to be any different. The freedom of not taking your thoughts so seriously. It's not fireworks, not divine visions, not some grand, permanent state of bliss. It's just this, life as it is, unadorned, simple, clear. And that's why so many miss it. They keep looking for something more, something higher, something brighter. The mind whispers that enlightenment must be something beyond ordinary, that it must be rare, profound, and otherworldly. But it isn't. It's always been here. The final trick of the mind is convincing you that this moment isn't enough, that the truth is elsewhere, that you must do something, become something, earn something. But the search ends the moment you realize what you've been seeking is already here. It always has been. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. The world stays the same, but your relationship to it is transformed. You're no longer a prisoner of the mind. You're no longer trapped in the cycle of becoming. There is no finish line, no grand finale. There is only now. And yet, even after hearing this, even after glimpsing the truth, most people still ask, but how do I get there? That question, innocent as it sounds, is a sign that the illusion is still in play. Because the greatest lie of all, the deepest deception, is the belief that you were ever separate from reality, that you had to journey to it, that you had to earn your way back. But you were never apart, not for a second. The only distance that ever existed was the one the mind imagined. From the beginning, you've been conditioned to believe in separation, that there is a you and a world, that there is a thinker behind the thoughts, that there is someone doing the experiencing. But look closely. Where is the line? Can you actually find the boundary between you and this moment? Between you and the act of reading these words? Or is there just reading, just seeing, just this? The mind insists on duality, insists on carving up life into subject and object, self and other. But it's a fabrication. A story told so often that it began to feel real. Everything you've ever known has happened now. The past is memory. The future is thought. Both live inside this moment. You're not traveling through time. You're always here, always now. But the mind resists the truth because if there's only now, then the self has nothing to hold on to, no past to define it, no future to chase. The present moment is terrifying to the ego because it doesn't need identity. It doesn't need your stories. And so the self begins to dissolve, not in some ecstatic vision, but in a quiet, ordinary recognition. Like waking up from a dream, you realize the one who was struggling, striving, improving was never really there. The self was never more than a collection of thoughts and memories, none of which have ever existed outside of now. And yet people spend their whole lives searching, reading, meditating, practicing, hoping to become what they already are, never realizing the seeker is the sought. There is no separate you who will awaken. There is only awakening itself. Stop for a moment. Feel what's here. Not your thoughts about it. Not your commentary on it. Just this. Is anything missing? Or is the sense of incompleteness just another thought? This is why Zen masters smile or remain silent when asked to define enlightenment. Because it can't be explained. It can only be lived. Words can point, but they can't take you there. You're already there. And that's the final truth. There's nothing to do, nothing to fix, nothing to become. The great illusion was that you ever needed to be anything other than what you already are. Even now, the mind may whisper, but what do I do next? That's the last wall, the last trap, because there is no next, no future moment where it all clicks. There is only this moment, and this one, and this one. The cycle of seeking only continues because you believe something is missing. But what if nothing is? What if there never was? The mind will tell you to keep going, to keep learning, to keep striving. That's its nature. But what happens when you stop? Not forever, just for now. What happens when you stop trying to be anything? When you stop resisting what is? You don't become a void. You don't disappear. You arrive fully for the first time. And that's what's been overlooked. Again and again. That this has always been it. This moment, this breath, this silence. Not the future, not the past. Just here, just now. The end of the story and the beginning of what's always been. What if the answer that ends all seeking is so simple, so quiet, so ordinary that the ego simply can't stand it? What if everything you've been searching for, peace, meaning, wholeness, freedom, has been here all along, hiding in plain sight, quietly waiting in the background of your constant striving? The ego recoils at this. The mind protests. It says, no, it can't be. Not just this. Not here. Not now. But what if that inner voice, the one that insists something's missing, has been lying to you your entire life? You see, we're taught to chase. We're taught to improve, to achieve, to become. We build ourselves around a story of insufficiency, of progress, of arriving someday in a better version of life. And so we run. We run after success, after love, after recognition. We run toward an idea of enlightenment, of awakening, believing it lies just beyond the next meditation, the next retreat, the next book or teacher. We believe the next thing will finally complete us. But what if the next thing never comes? What if it doesn't need to? What if enlightenment isn't about finding anything new, but about seeing what's always been here? What if there's nothing to gain, and the entire journey was never about becoming someone different, but about realizing you were never lacking to begin with? That's terrifying to the ego. It thrives on the illusion of a future self, a better self. Without that illusion, it has no purpose. So it keeps whispering that you're not there yet, that you haven't quite understood enough, that you must keep seeking. And the world encourages it. Because a seeker is a consumer. A seeker buys. A seeker chases the next technique, the next insight, the next promise. A seeker never stops long enough to realize they're already home. The system loves seekers. It needs them. It profits from their restlessness. But restlessness is not your natural state. That is learned. You've been conditioned to believe there's always something more, something missing, something outside of yourself that will finally make you whole. But what if you stopped? Just stopped. Right now. No more searching. No more improving. No more trying to transcend or evolve or get somewhere else. What would remain? Silence, perhaps. Simplicity. Stillness. Presence. And in that presence, something extraordinary begins to unfold. Not because life changes, but because your relationship to life changes. The weight of needing it to be different disappears. The burden of self-improvement vanishes. Suddenly, you are no longer at war with the moment. You're no longer trying to get somewhere else. You're just here. And somehow, miraculously, that becomes enough. The mind, of course, resists. It will ask, but what does this mean for my life? How do I live now? That question is the ego's final grasp, the last thread. It wants a new purpose to replace the old one. It wants something to hold on to. It wants to make this realization into another identity, another goal. But there's nothing left to achieve. Life doesn't need to be repurposed or reframed. It doesn't need to be anything more than it already is. The sun still rises. The breath still moves. You still eat, speak, work, laugh. But the striving ends. The inner commentary quiets. You are no longer trying to become something. You are simply being. This is what freedom truly means. Not floating above the world in blissful detachment, but walking through it unburdened. You're not separated from life. You're immersed in it, fully, without resistance. Nothing needs to be added. Nothing needs to be taken away. You live not to fulfill a story or chase a legacy, but because you're alive, and that, finally, is enough. Yet this isn't the answer most people want. Most want enlightenment to come with fireworks and finality, a dramatic transformation that solves all their problems and makes their life permanently meaningful. But that's just another illusion, another carrot on a stick. The reality is much quieter, much simpler. Enlightenment doesn't give you a divine mission. It removes the need for one. It doesn't give you a new identity. It dissolves the illusion of all identities. And in that space, something radical happens. Life becomes effortless. Challenges still arise. Pain still comes. But it's no longer personal. There's no longer a self-clinging to the highs or avoiding the lows. There's just experience, flowing naturally. You meet what arises, moment by moment, without needing to control it, label it, or fix it. You're no longer trying to win life. You're simply living it. Most people, understandably, won't accept this. It's too simple. The mind craves complexity. It wants steps and systems and philosophies. It wants to feel like it's making progress. That's why it turns awakening into a concept, something to attain, rather than something to see. But awakening is not a concept. It's not even an experience. It's reality, unfiltered, ungrasped. It doesn't ask for your belief. It doesn't need your analysis. It just is, whether you see it or not. And if you do see it, you'll realize something profoundly humbling. There never was a journey. There never was a seeker. There never was anything missing. The whole drama of becoming collapses in an instant, and all that remains is this: life, exactly as it is. And somehow, it's enough. This is where most people turn away. They hear these words, and the mind rejects them. It's too anticlimactic, too ordinary, too still. And so they return to the search, to the next book, the next insight, the next promise of something greater. And that's okay. That's part of the dance. But a few, just a few, will hear this and stop. Not tomorrow. Not later. Now. And for those few, everything changes. Not because life itself changes, but because they no longer need it to. They're no longer waiting, no longer grasping. They're simply here, free. No more narratives, no more seeking, no more self-improvement disguised as spirituality. Just the raw, beautiful truth of being. The ego will protest until the very end. It will say, surely there's more. Surely there's something deeper, but that's just its nature. It doesn't know how to rest. It doesn't know how to be still. It only knows how to become. But you are not the ego. You are what's aware of it. You are the silence beneath its noise, the stillness behind its movement. You are the unchanging awareness in which all thoughts, feelings, and sensations arise. And that awareness? It's never been lost, never been broken, never needed fixing. It's just been overlooked. So if you've heard something true here, if something in you stirs, softens, recognizes this quiet knowing, then let it be enough. Let this moment be enough. Not as an idea, but as a living reality. Because this is it. There is no next step, no secret technique, no final insight waiting in the shadows. There is only this. And if you truly see that, then the search is over, not because you've reached the end, but because there was never anywhere to go. And now, life begins. Effortless, unburdened, whole, just as it always was.